My name is Mark Sinacori. I was born on August 16th, 1982 in Lawrence, Massachusetts. I attended the John R. Rollins School from kindergarten through 5th grade, Holy Trinity School from 6th grade through 8th grade, Central Catholic High School, graduated with the class of 2000, all in Lawrence, Massachusetts, and then I went to Merrimack College and graduated in 2005 with a bachelor's degree in English. In the spring of 2005, I was invited to UCLA to interview for the MFA program, and they were interviewing their candidates on the East Coast who lived on the East Coast in New York City. I interviewed in New York City, was rejected, but got into the professional program, and that fall of 2005, on September 2nd, 2005, I made the move to Los Angeles. I went to UCLA for a year in this professional screenwriting program, and I was taught by Paul Chitlick and Fred Rubin, my two screenwriting professors. And Paul Chitlick told me, you could be an actor while you write. You have so much energy. You do a great job voicing these characters in these scripts. Be an actor while you write. And he told the whole class, he said, maybe two people out of all my classes in each class, maybe, in his words, would become screenwriters, like full-fledged SAG-AFTRA screenwriters of big shows or movies. He was just giving an example. Out of the 10 of us in class, maybe two of us would. That's it. It's very, very difficult to become a full-fledged screenwriter like that. But the acting, he told me, would be a lot easier. While I act, write. While I write, act. So when I finished UCLA in 2006, I had seen The Price is Right 6 times. I had gone to TV tapings. I was never called down. I had a hint I might have been called down because I kept going back to the show, and the contestant coordinator, Stan Blitz, always smiled. He always greeted me with a big smile, always happy to see me. So that fall of 2006, I applied to CBS in the Page program they had there. NBC, I know NBC was still going strong. It was getting toward the end of the Page program in Burbank, because I know they got rid of the NBC Burbank pages a while after that. They wanted a specific 3.2 GPA overall in college. I had a 3.0. So I said, forget that. CBS, they didn't worry about that GPA. You had to have finished college, 4-year degree, to at least be eligible for an interview. So that fall, I called Human Resources, and I interviewed at CBS, and I got the job. And I worked all different shows on the lot. I worked American Idol, Dancing with the Stars, The Late Late Show with Craig Ferguson, and The Price is Right. At The Price is Right, I used to sing out in line to the audience. I used to get them to sing and dance and have fun. And I always would cheer for them all the time, to cheer for Bob Barker, all the time. It was his final season. And I got to work so many amazing events at The Price is Right that season. So many. I got to rehearse behind the scenes with Mario Lopez and George Hamilton and Todd Newton and Mike Richards when they tried out before they did their test shows. They got a couple of us pages together, and I was one of the practice contestants. And at the behind the scenes, Rich Fields and Stan Blitz and Roger Dobkowitz, the producer, and Fingers Kathy Greco, the producer, they were all laughing and smiling, and I got to know all of them at that point. And Stan told me, Stan goes, hey, Mark, didn't I ever call you down on the show? And I said, no. And he said, well, even though you didn't get called down, it may be hard to get called down, but you working here now, it's just as great. And I'm like, definitely. So I know they always chose more than 9 contestants, but they always limit it down when you're in the studio. They're like, okay, this one, this one, this one. They usually have more than 9, I heard. There's a list of like at least 20 or something like that. So maybe I was on a couple of those lists, or maybe all of them. I don't know. So, and then I got at Craig Ferguson, I got to work a behind-the-scenes sketch with Piper Perabo. She was in a scene with Craig's writing assistant. That's a big thing that happened to me when I was at CBS Page. She tells him Craig doesn't find his work funny. She walks off. He's sobbing. And I pat him on the shoulder and I say, "It's okay, man. You're still funny to me." And that was basically it. And then the scene never aired. The security guard, she had lines on the show before. And she told me, since you signed something, if they pay you, if it airs, they will pay you. If it doesn't air, you won't get no check. So unfortunately, it never aired. I never got paid for that. But that was the first thing I did that had a line in television. It was aired in front of an audience or with an audience. And then after CBS, I worked a jerkwater job. Oh, it was a jerkwater job. There were people there mostly who didn't finish college or they didn't even go to high school. Some of them were college dropouts. A lot of them were high school dropouts, most likely. A lot of them did marijuana, but it was an office job and it was a job to be taken seriously. And it was right outside of the Hollywood sign. It was at the House of Blues on Sunset and Vine. And I was one of the best on my team. But the company started going downhill in 2008, and I had applied so many jobs after that point. I was applying everywhere. I was applying to so many different production jobs. Game Show Network, VH1, MTV. My mom even knew people. She was working in a nursing home here in Massachusetts. And she'd meet people at the nursing home that knew people in LA or that worked in LA on TV and film. And some of them looked me up online and they're like, yeah, we're going to try to get him a PA job, or we're going to try to get him featured on the show. But that never happened. And then I got a few different interviews, but I went to the interviews, I interviewed, and they already had their people. They're like, nope, we have enough people. Um, so that was 2008. And then in the spring of 2008, I was doing free PA work. I was doing free PA work on films and sets and here and there. And it was just for experience. And working on some of them, I got to have some lines as characters. And then on March 31st, 2008, I did free PA work. I was crossing a street and a car hit me. That was the last time I will ever do free production assistant work. After that point, I was taken by awe with a girl I had seen in the break room at the job I was working at the jerkwater job I was working at. She was always sitting alone. She was always tense, shy, nervous, very antisocial. And my friends would go, "Mark, he's a square just like you." Square meaning, a weirdo, a nerd. And me, I was always outgoing. I was always talkative. And they'd say, every time, like, she looks at you, and then when you look at her, she turns away. And then when you turn your face, she looks right back at you. So after I got hit by the car, I said, I'm going to face my fear. So I did that. And I walked up to her, and I introduced myself, and she smiled, and we got to know one another. And then later that day, I found out she was related to a celebrity, a very well-known female Walt Disney discovered celebrity from the 1950s who I had very much respect for. And I had known about the celebrity way before, like in the 1980, late 80s, when my parents recorded a certain movie off The Wonderful World of Disney, when like 1988 or so. So I told her, I was like, do you want to hang out? Do you want to do this and that? Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. So she strung me along here and there, but we had gone out. We were going out to Denny's, to Norm's, to Coco's. She drove me around Universal City. She mouthed off at my car navigator. I bought her roses. I bought her candy. I bought her a gift basket for Christmas. I bought her an Xbox for that Christmas. And then she told me, well, before I even bought her the Xbox and the gift basket, she told me, after she left that jerkwater job, "Oh, I'm seeing someone right now." I'm like, "You never told me that." "Oh, well, we're just friends." I'm like, "We are? I thought you said it was going to be more than friends." Because I asked you, I said, "Is this going to work out?" And you said, "Yes." And then, well, she did string me along here and there. And then one thing led to another. And she was polyamorous. So she would go from guy to guy, just how every typical female is. Flaky. And I didn't like that. And then her roommate apparently threw her out. She went back to live with her mom, and she wanted to get together. And I'm like, no. And then she's like, I'm sorry. Look, I know I hurt you. I'm sorry. Give me a chance. And I'm like, okay, sure. So I picked her up. We hung out. Went back to my place. And she was my first kiss and more with a celebrity's niece. How ironic is that? And then after that point, I still hung out with her here and there. But I told her, I said, I don't like what you're doing. I don't like you going from guy to guy and partying and drugs and whatnot she was doing. And she told me, oh, you can't tell me what to do. So I'm like, okay, then I don't want to have anything to do with you anymore. And that's when it just ended altogether. So I could say, my first kiss and more was with a well respected and who I respected very much, Disney celebrity's niece. And it's easy to determine who that was. I mean, I'm Italian, and this celebrity was also Italian. And then after that point, I was doing extra work. I did extra work in the fall of 2007 a few times. And while I was on one of the sets, Grey's Anatomy, I met this woman there. And she looked about 15 years older than me, maybe 12 to 15 years older. We were smitten. We were like hanging out between takes outside at ABC Prospect outside in the alleyways, just smitten and talking. And we kept in touch after that point. It was the day Hunter Tyler's son died. He drowned. And she goes, oh, my friend's son died. And she had lines in daytime soaps before that point. So she claimed she was friends with Hunter Tyler. And then I worked a few times extra work after that, and I stopped. And I got into real estate. And then after that point, I got back. Well, I was needed on the series Glee. In 2009, my mom got a call, and Bill Beck, the producer's assistant, Brad Falchuk's assistant, called the house in Massachusetts because I don't post my info online. I don't post my name and number and email. Hackers probably know it, but I don't post it at all. And he said they really want him on the show. I thought it was because of Nip Tuck, because Glee was the same creators of Nip Tuck. And that was the first show I ever did background work with. And Glee, they had taken photos of us on set. And I think they did it at Nip Tuck too. I was thinking back, I'm like, maybe they did that there too. It was 2 years earlier, but I think they had done that as well. So after that point, I was on Glee. I was in the episode Preggers. Um, and then I realized, because I had stalkers online from Central. I went to Central Catholic. People just they wanna hurt others. I don't know why in life. And they had hacked my email. They had hacked my computer. They had hacked my phone. They had hacked my life. Oh, we had him on the show. If it wasn't for us, he wouldn't have been on the show. And then the 13th episode sectionals opened with the characters talking about my character, Mr. Sinacori, the creepy math teacher who always sings down the halls. Now, I was told at the show by Brad, I believe it was, he goes, Mark, play him like a creepy math teacher with a secret in his mind and just smile at Will Schuester. And I did that. And all my friends and everyone, some of them made it a joke, some of them didn't. Some of them said, if they used your name, you will go back. And I said, hey, this is Hollywood. You don't know that. I have hackers and stalkers that made it happen. Who knows what's going to happen? And, I waited it out. I'm like, I stayed in LA all throughout the series of Glee. Like, Glee was filmed for 6 years. And they had never brought me back. They only mentioned me that one time in that one scene. And then I was told that Brad had used some of my lines that I just rabbled online for character dialogue. I never made those, what's the word? Copyrighted. And people told me, don't use us in your stuff. We could sue you. Don't do this or that. And I had to agree with that, People don't like it when I do that. But, my lines were not copyright. Anyone could have used them. But I was okay with it. I remained positive, and I stayed in LA, and it was a struggle. It was a real struggle the next couple of years, 2010, 11, 12. Those years were spent scrambling for extra work and praying something would happen. I sent my resume to Melrose Place. I was able to get through to that. And they most likely threw it in the trash for production assistant work. I would have been an amazing production assistant on that show. I knew the whole original series. I would have been on time. I would have been, devoted to that show. The way I was to The Price is Right. The way I was to other shows that I was devoted to. But they wanted to go elsewhere, so that's what happened, and that's it, you know? They had to choose blue-haired production assistants and ones that fell asleep on set. And the crew, the producers didn't even know how to fake Sidney Andrews' death. And I'm like, why couldn't they bring Carter back a few episodes before? He was rich. He could have faked her death, taken her away, got, you know, died or something, and she inherited his money to buy Melrose Place. That would have been the perfect way. But not only did they mess up with that, they messed up in so many other ways, bringing back other characters. They said Michael Mancini faked Sidney's death. He was in a hospital bed that night of her wedding. He couldn't have. So that was the stupidest thing they did, and I'm just glad it ended after 19 episodes, 18 episodes. I was just thinking they were going to get 13, they were going to get canceled, but they went on another 6, so hey, you know, I tried my best to get on to be a part of that show. Even extra work. I submitted twice, and they didn't need me because they already had their roles full. And it was central casting when I called. Central casting, you can rarely get through to them, and when you do, roles are already filled up. So then I got to work other shows. I got to be on Grey's Anatomy more. I got to audition on Grey's Anatomy, and when I auditioned for the director for the episode Love, Loss, and Legacy, they kept bringing me back as a regular hospital staffer. And I was on The Defenders. I was on A Men of a Certain Age. I was on Criminal Minds. I got to work on Numbers. I got to work on Revenge. I got to work Don't Trust the Bee in Apartment 23. And then Desperate Housewives. Just before the series ended, I got on that show. I was still non-union at the time. And then I joined the union because SAG-AFTRA merged, and it was very hard to get any work at all. I was doing short films that went non-union here and there over the years. I couldn't do that anymore. I could only submit to SAG-AFTRA stuff. I wasn't getting called in. And Grey's Anatomy was using me less and less and less the next couple of years. They could have used me more, but I stopped in 2014. I'm like, I don't want to do extra work anymore. It was just not worth it anymore. By that point, I had taken acting classes. I had taken casting director classes. I had taken on-camera classes. I had taken cold reading classes. I had taken commercial classes. And I did not have a legit agent. But I had publicity. I was making myself public online. I'm always online. Maybe I'm online too much and people don't like it. But I had my photos out there. I had my reels out there. I had my resumes out there. People knew how to contact me. I was with Central Casting. I was with Cut Above Casting, who was a booking service at the time for extras. And I was with Sandy Lisa Casting. I was with Jeff Olin Casting. Okay, they cast extras, but those extras could always get upgraded to lines or whatever. If any big producers knew of me and wanted to call me, they could have called those casting places to get back to me. So that was the way I let them stay in touch with me. But then nothing ever happened from that. And then in 2014... no, wait a second. 2012. Let's go back a little. I moved. I was living in Santa Monica. I moved to Van Nuys, and I started going out with that woman I met at Grey's Anatomy. And we went out all throughout 2012 in the summer, and we got very close, and we were together. And I was madly, hopelessly, passionately in love. And I was loved back for a change this time by someone I loved and I really liked when I first met them, and I trusted them with all my heart. And then after that point in 2012, I started getting side jobs. I was working side jobs at Pyology Pizzeria over the next couple of years. Pyology Pizzeria, Dunkin' Donuts, and Ona Hawaiian Barbecue. Between 2012 and 2019, I did those side jobs while I tried getting an agent, while I was taking some more acting classes, and while I got back into the studios in 2014. My relationship with that older woman lasted until, well, it was all throughout the summer of 2012, and then into 2013, incidents happened that drove us more apart. We were still kind of together. She wanted to be with me, I wanted to be with her, but it was getting toward the end. And in 2014, it just got even worse, much worse, that I just broke all ties with her in the spring. And then after that happened, I got back into the studios paging. I got hired by Audiences Unlimited. Now, it was A Page Enterprise Audiences Unlimited. Now, that company had been around since 1982. They, I think, were the first page company out of all of them. At the time, when I was living in LA, there were 3. Three big ones. There was Audiences Unlimited, there was On Camera Audiences, and there was One Iota. And those other two audience companies did less of the sitcoms. My company, Audiences Unlimited, did mostly the sitcoms, and that was amazing. I loved working the sitcoms. I loved working those shows and getting the audiences in. So getting to work at Audiences Unlimited, um, shows that they started off with in the 80s, I'm sure. Facts of Life, Different Strokes, Give Me a Break, Silver Spoons, Webster, Cheers, Night Court, Golden Girls, Who's the Boss? And then as the 90s came about, Family Matters, Full House, Roseanne, Home Improvement, Step by Step. And then after that point were the 2000s, and that's when the pages that I met, the legendary pages were still there at that time. The older pages had all left. They had retired or whatever. And then there were only like three or four that were still there since the late 90s. So they had worked on all the TGIF shows that were still on in the late 90s, like um, Family Matters and Step by Step and Boy Meets World and so and so. So when I started there, I got to work on Mike and Molly, Mom, Two Broke Girls. I got to work on Two and a Half Men. I got to work on America's Funniest Home Videos. Then I got to work on Girl Meets World once. And then Full House came back as Fuller House. And I said, I'd love to work that show. And I got to work the pilot. And I did trivia out in line and they loved it. The audience loved it. So I started doing trivia also at Girl Meets World. And then when the Connors came back, once Roseanne transferred into the Connors, after Roseanne was let go and got canceled and moved into the Connors show, I did trivia here at the Connors based on the Connor family from Roseanne. And that was a lot of fun. I got to work so many different sitcoms as an audience coordinator there, processing the audiences, greeting them out in line. And at a few select shows, I did trivia. The Ranch, Two Broke Girls, and Fuller House, those were some of my regular shows. My three regular shows were Two Broke Girls, The Ranch, and then before I moved home, Fuller House. And then 2019 came about. And by that time, I had submitted to so many different places. I submitted my resume to Melrose Place, Fuller House, Girl Meets World, Grey's Anatomy, uh, Devious Maids, and a few other different TV shows and films that were filming in the LA area. Big budget films, SAG-AFTRA. And none of them called me in to be a mere PA. And I didn't want to risk it. I didn't want to risk going on set at these sitcoms or Grey's Anatomy when I used to do extra work and handing them my resume. I didn't want to get let go of those positions and get told, no, we don't want you as that, and now we don't want you as this either. I was afraid of that. I felt just okay going back as that extra or as that page. I didn't want to get fired. Because I looking back at my past and things that had happened to me and to others that I knew, I didn't want to go through that. I wanted to leave good, lasting impressions with these people. And working at The Price is Right, the crew all loved me there. Stan Blitz, Rich Fields, Fingers Kathleen Greco, Roger Dobkowicz. They were amazing crew to work with. And the same thing at Grey's Anatomy. These people at Grey's Anatomy were amazing. I didn't want to just chance it and say, here's my resume. Because when I worked Audiences Unlimited, we weren't allowed to do that. And I would have never done that. I didn't want to risk my page job to get told, no, we don't want you as a PA, and we were going to report you to your boss at Audiences Unlimited that you did that. I didn't want to go through that. So I just stuck with it being a page. I did my best, and I gave it my all. I used to do trivia out in line with the audience. Instead of just standing there and just being quiet, I used to do that, and they used to love that on those shows. So in 2019, I said to myself, this is all I can get. There's not enough money living out here. If you're a extra, if you're a page, if you even get to PA work, if you get to stand-in work, audience warm-up work, that's lowest of the low. You're lucky if you make a few $100s a day. Maximum a couple $100s a day. And that's all that people I knew in LA were doing. And a lot of people just stayed after that point. And so much work has been let go. I moved home on July 3rd, 2019. I felt The time was right. I could have stayed the whole last season of Fuller House. I worked only the first few episodes, but I had a good time there, and I have my memories saved on video, and it was a lot of fun, but I had to get out. And being back home in Boston, I've been home since 2019. I have not taken new headshots yet. That's the main reason why I'm not getting back into the acting. I know it's probably going to be very difficult to get PA work, especially in this area. There's not as much stuff filming. But for acting, if anything, I'd have to have new headshots and headshots to send out with resumes. If I give them my 2013 headshots, I don't look like that anymore. You have to update them every couple of years. And I kept that up until now. It's been 10 years. So at some point, I have to update them again. And when I do, that's probably when I'm going to start sending my stuff out to places in Boston. But I still have ideas. I have ideas written. My first short film, Womanizer, was filmed in 2011. It did not get finished until 2014. Drew Barrymore's brother, John Barrymore, directed it. But look, most of the cast took advantage of it. And it took a long time to finish. Scenes were cut. Scenes were put different places. And it was just not on my vision in the end. So anything I make in the future, I will be the director from now on and producer. But I'm going to get a really good production team that knows how to not only film, but also edit, put everything together on DVDs, and help submit it out to festivals and such. Because my crew I had to do everything. And I was clueless on what to do back then. So, yeah, that's basically in a nutshell. I'm every time I do interviews like this, I always leave something out. But that's basically a nutshell of me and my Hollywood experience between 2005, September 2nd, 2005, to July 3rd, 2019.